Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Lucidworks Streams with myself, Michael Hun, and Cord Campbell. And I think we're going to get started. How you doing, Cord?
I'm doing good.
Awesome.
This is our fourth attempt.
This is our fourth one. This is our fourth show. Happy fourth anniversary.
We lost last week's stream. That was my fault. It was good though because we're just going to do it again and it'll be better this time. Right. So we have a better layout, I think.
Exactly.
I guess maybe if I'm going to check the stream status if you want to talk about maybe follows and stuff, I guess.
So we're looking for people to follow us and like us on our YouTube channel. So please go ahead and do that if you haven't done so already. And I think so. Today we're gonna look at how actually for following. Do we have a specific?
So I think they just click. They're going to click the follow button. They have to click on the little bell. So there's a little bell now on YouTube that you have to click on for it to notify you.
Okay.
So if you're into like you're gonna watch the videos and stuff, you have to not only subscribe but click on the bell for it to notify you, and then once that's done, you'll get a notification.
So please do that.
Yeah, and if you like the video, like it, and of course share it. So that's important too. So. I'm waiting to see if we're streaming. I'm pretty sure we're streaming. What are we going to cover today? I think we're going to do a little bit of a new format, so we're going to talk a little bit about a Hacker News article.
Right.
So we're going to sort of like
have that conversation.
Yeah, have some fun with that. Yeah. And then, our stream's live, so we're good. So I'm just not going to worry about that now.
Awesome.
So we're going to assume that that's working and
so
that we're not mute. So I'm going to cut over to your laptop.
Okay.
And let's see here. Are you? Is that? I'm going to transition over.
There you go.
I see fusion signals dim. Oh yeah, there you are. So they were live. And so evidently the Pentagon says that they're going to revolutionize
and machine learning will revolutionize U.S. intelligence community. So says the Pentagon. What does that mean? What do you think that means?
It sort of scares the hell out of me, really. I mean, I don't know. Like, I think that I heard something the other day that
this is the whole Terminator thing. This is where it all starts,
right?
With the Pentagon and AI and machine learning.
Well, I would put it. So that sounds scary.
Yeah.
Like I guess if you can visualize, you can sort of see this.
I don't visualize. I conceptualize.
Me either. But for people who do visualize, right, I think they can see sort of like a Terminator-like thing, maybe running roughshod over our government and our society.
Yeah.
But then again, though, I feel like I saw this thing where they were saying that the FBI was pissed off because they were no longer able to get into people's iPhones.
Oh darn!
Well, and
because they made them.
Because they made it hard for them to get into that.
Exactly.
And I mean, I kind of get if you have a bad person and they've done bad things and you got their iPhone.
Right.
Well, then I mean, you sort of want them to get into the phone.
Right.
But then there's also sort of this whole idea of orderly society being innocent until you're proven guilty.
Well, that's what a FISA court is for. They go if they want to get into your phone, then go get a warrant, and then But then I guess they would have to go to the phone manufacturers to get sort of these encryption codes to get into the phone. Well, they can also go figure it out themselves.
I think now they're making it though where it's actually almost impossible to even get into it, like where the company can't even get into it if the person has secured it enough. Now, like on the iPhone, you've got a separate processor that handles the fingerprint stuff. Right. Now, somebody hacked that, and then they subsequently fixed it.
Right.
So it's sort of an arms race.
Yeah.
I heard this quote that was thrown around. I don't know that it's true, but they said the
I'm
current
gonna quote you on it.
state of AI was as smart as a cat. So that's the top AI is as smart as a cat. So then we're going to have this cat recommending that the FBI, maybe the cat will hack your phone.
A cat burglar.
Yeah, to get into your iPhone, right?
Well, I was actually house sitting for some friends, and their cat got into the liquor cabinet pretty easily.
Well, they're not idiots.
No.
They just don't act like us. They don't do the same thing. I had a cat, and I won't tell you what the cat did. Well, it wasn't my cat. It was the girlfriend's cat. But they're not dumb.
No, cats are pretty.
They're pretty smart. Yeah. So I feel like that maybe AI. We're talking about machine learning. Machine learning, I guess, is one thing. It seems like maybe machine learning and AI are sort of converging on this, but let's look at what some people here say. So maybe we can read some of these, right?
So here's one from Groby_B. It was one day ago. Oh yay! Given the magic of AI and machine learning, that's going to be
a clusterfuck of epic proportions. Yeah, if we're lucky, we'll even survive the telltale.
He seems to be more on the pessimistic side of the AI and ML, how it could potentially cause harm to human civilization. I brought up Terminator, but I don't necessarily believe that that's the outcome is based on how we as a society start to formulate our opinions about what we want AI to do for us.
Right.
Is it that we want AI to totally take over any of our thought processes that go on? Just sort of these everyday activities that we do. Like, do we want AI to start writing novels and then we just sit back and read them? AI starts making movies for us and we just start watching them without really interacting with the process? Or is it something that is just sort of a tool to assist us to improve our lives?
Maybe it's a combination of those two things. It's giving us stuff, but it's also enjoying it too.
Right.
Where it's sort of I can see where the government has got an AI and it's doing stuff with bad people. But also it feels like a lot of times governments think that because their job is to protect their citizens, that it's their job to do that in the future.
Right.
But I feel like that's highly irrational because you can't really tell what's going to happen in the future. So I feel like they're trying to fill this role that they've historically been bad at with something that we don't even know about yet, which is AI. And I sort of question whether the AI, at the point that it is much smarter than a cat, will actually want to do that for the government.
Right.
It would be reasonable at that point, you would assume, if it's able to find bad people, sniff out bad people, well, then it might actually say, well, I actually don't know that this person's bad, and maybe you should go talk to them.
Right.
But if they end up throwing them in jail just because that's the behavior, then...
Well, with any sort of machine learning process, don't you have to have a training data set? So what is bad? Well, bad is what the Pentagon says is bad.
And it's a bunch of bias. I would hazard it's a bunch of biased data that they have right now. I think we've seen historically that the government and the law enforcement works off of biased data.
Right.
I saw a thing where the other day there was a guy who had a rap sheet, so he had a felony rap sheet. He was white.
Right.
There was a woman who was black, and she had done, and they both did, I think, the same thing, which was a very lightweight, violation.
Right.
And the AI, they actually had AI, a machine learning algorithm there, and it recommended they stuff her in jail and him not. And he had a rap sheet, and 6 months later, he was arrested for robbing somebody with a gun, and she never had another episode of it. So I feel like this is biased.
So that's a perfect example of the training, like you're saying, the biased data set that they train that AI to sort of. Why is it that if you look historically, like men versus women committing crimes, men commit more crimes than women. So why did the AI choose the woman? What was the difference besides gender? Well, maybe it was, well, obviously ethnicity is one. So where is that coming from? Is that coming from the data set itself? The data set was just, not to be so political, but was the data set mostly black people, or was it, you know what I'm saying? So then, of course, it's gonna.
That's I think that's the bias. I mean, we know that if we train like a search engine with bad data going in, you're going to get bad data coming out. That happens all the time. In fact, a lot of times we have to. I think today we're going to do a little boosting of results. But I mean, whenever you get the data coming in, the data that is there needs to be continually being. You need to interact with it. Otherwise, the data doesn't really mean a lot. And I would say that things like, well, do you have wavy hair or straight hair or no hair or lots of hair? Like, that doesn't really have anything to do with who you are. It's sort of like your, you know, like how you travel. Right. And maybe how you travel is related to other things, but it seems like the AI, if it was really smart and was really intelligent, it would realize that correlation and causation are oftentimes misunderstood, and that these tools that you're building can be misused by the people that are using them. So it seems like really the problem is always going to. It seems like we're going to take AI and fix this stuff. I don't think that's going to happen.
No.
I think it's going to cause the problem to get worse until they fix
themselves. Yeah. Maybe it will show something more about the people that are controlling the data set that is the actual methodology.
That's right.
Like, what's going on with you?
Well, you can kind of see why Musk is like sort of talking about the mesh, the neural mesh. He sort of sees our need to merge with this thing, but I almost feel like if we can get it, if it does happen, that we can figure out how to get it to get smart and intelligence, that maybe it will have a little conversation with us about how we judge and blame, and maybe it will have a better grasp of that because maybe it'll be a little bit more logical. It seems like humans tend to be a bit irrational. Right? But then also you have to look at, like, is it like the compute power for these AI? I mean, is there a kill switch for them? I mean, can you just like spin them down? I mean, are they spot instances? You know, like, they only run for 24 hours and you shut off.
Then you shut off.
Okay. All right. So that was kind of fun.
That was kind
Let's
of fun.
do that next week again. Yeah. AI stories. Okay. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to real quick cover using the startup script that we've got, and our startup script is in GitHub. So if you're interested in checking that out, GitHub has got our Lucidworks GitHub account has a repo, and it's called Streams, and it contains the stream content. So it's the configs plus the any information that you need. And right now that content's pretty light, but it also has an image in there and a startup script for starting a Fusion instance on Google. Although you could probably take this and use it for maybe starting instances on Amazon or whatever like that. Eventually we'll have that. But let me give you a little view of the Fusion startup script, and then I'm just going to run it. And you can see the output from it earlier, so I'm just going to run this script, start Fusion. This is the same start Fusion GCP, is the same file. And what this does is it actually creates an instance, which is a 8-core instance, that we have enough processor power to do this stuff, the demos that Michael does. And what it does is it actually downloads, it takes a Ubuntu instance and provisions it, and installs some very few packages, and then it actually downloads Fusion from us and installs it. And then it spits out this thing at the bottom that says, okay, we've got this thing running, and it's going to be available on this port. And so when Michael does his demo, he'll actually be hitting one of these that we started earlier. And I start this is a preemptible instance, which means it runs for 24 hours. It's a much cheaper rate starting them this way, and then they shut off after 24 hours. So if you forget to turn it off. It's not going to ding you for it. But you're also perhaps going to lose your data if you do that. The second thing I want to show is the YAML file for the bottle instance. So we have a Docker instance that in the future we're going to be using. We may try to use a little bit today if I can get it running while Michael's going through his setup of Fusion, is that we've got this Docker container that we're using that we launch on Kubernetes that we can use to both send data to the Fusion instance as well as get data out of it via queries via the APIs. And that's stored in the bottle directory under the images directory. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to Michael.
You'll be a little disappointed in me because I have a demo sort of set up already. Mm-hmm. It's sort of a full-fledged demo that kind of models what we were talking about last week. But what I can do is once we're done is I can pull the configurations down from that, and we can.
Cool. That sounds perfect. Yeah, you take it away.
So last week we were talking about how, since we're talking about machine learning and all the good stuff, I wanted to kind of dive back into the signals processing again. Okay. And so if you see my screen now in a second, it should refresh, I think. Or does it, do I need to close this one?
No, no, it's just delayed.
Okay.
So I think there's just a little bit of a delay in it getting up. So
okay.
I think it should be okay.
So right here, this is our doctor search demo. I'm doing some stuff with healthcare right now, so this actually makes a little more sense for me right now. And essentially, what I want to do is when we go in and when we develop a site or search application for a client, what a signal is an event. It's some sort of user or time event, or a user action event. So in the case of this, it would be a click. So we call them click signals. I'm going to do a search. I'm going to search on cancer because I'm morbid like that. But what I want to do is I want to find something in Boston because I've lived in Boston for a long time, and if I ever get sick when I'm out there, I want to find a doctor. So I click on Boston to filter. Let's say I look through the first set of results and I just don't like what I'm seeing. So I go to the third set. I went to the second, I went to the third. And I want to choose Lydia Nabati, internal medicine, hospice, palliative care. She's in Boston. All right. So I click on her. I'm assuming that is her, but if not, I apologize. I click, and it brings me over to here. Now, what happens, as you can see, is now it says that one click was submitted. So that was an event. An event. So what happens under the scenes? Or behind the scenes? So this is the supporting collection for the doctor's search, doc_signals. And what's in that? What's in a signal? Well, as you can see when I hit reload, one of the query facets, this is a facet here, is cancer popped up. I just typed that, and it's sorting it by date, which is great. So let's look at the signal. So what comes in? So I had a click of one.
Oh, interesting.
It gives me the doc ID of the document that I clicked on. It's an event, so it's flagging it. It gives some other information about where I'm from, San Francisco. So one question I have is why aren't we filtering based on where I am? So I don't even have
So it already knows where I am.
It knows where I am. Yeah.
So what figured that out? I mean, I know we can do IP address lookup and things like that, which I assume is what's happening here, right? But,
yeah, look at this. So this must be...
So is that happened in the pipeline somewhere?
That happened, it must have been part of the click event.
I
as
see.
well.
I see. Okay.
So,
right, because this is the actual click event, right?
Right. So,
Okay.
I mean, it's happened in San Francisco. I get a longitude and latitude.
Right.
It's clearly not the doctor's. This is my. If I put this in here,
Mm-hmm.
and I go back to here, let's see.
Yeah. Well,
It's close enough.
That's right where we are.
That's
not anywhere close to where we are.
Not even close to, that's on Divisadero. Where is that?
Yeah.
We're way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't even know where.
But it's closer to Boston. So.
Yeah. Funny.
So okay, so it's not, but somehow it's still got San Francisco out of that. It tells me some browser information. This is a doctor's signal. This is where that doctor is located. This parameter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is wrong because I don't think we're 115. And the type of signal is a click. All right. So right now behind the scenes, I think the aggregation jobs run every couple of minutes, and I think I might have talked for about 2 minutes or so.
Yep.
So now, what I expect to happen is I'm gonna remove all my filters, so we can kind of see this again, and I'm going to say cancer again, and let's see what happens. Note where Lydia is. Lydia
Right. So she got boosted.
She got boosted to the top of the results.
Yep.
Because every time I search on cancer and someone starts to click, it'll process that signal and start to boost that person up. If I search on, I mean, I could do this with other. So
now I have a question. Is it boosting her on cancer, or is it boosting her in general? Like,
so it's boosting the document.
The document.
The doc ID. It's boosting the doc ID based on the query.
Gotcha.
And
if you look, like Susan Hoover has a score of like 4.7, and
Lydia has a score 30. Of 30. It's like, why is Lydia so
boosted?
Because this.
Yeah.
Because the signal boost of 100.
Yep, she got a signal boost because of that. Okay.
So
that's interesting.
So that's the way that we. I mean, this is very simplistic, and it obviously is fraught with issues of, well, maybe Lydia really isn't a true. Should not really be boosted.
She's clicking on herself.
Yeah, she's clicking on herself, or like a bunch of we simulate this by. I think when in a live sort of environment, you don't want to boost on just like I'll click. You want to boost on if it's multiples of clicks on something. So that's something that you would take into consideration when you're trying to develop this, because every click doesn't mean something should be boosted. It just means we're waiting for a certain accumulation.
Yep.
And we could do this with any, like there's another one that I did that it's the same sort of demo for Best, like we have like that public data that I was showing last week for Best Buy. Give me a second. There.
So it's public data from Best Buy.
Right, and it's the same sort of issue. So, like if I'm going to look up router. And then
a bunch of CDs.
Different CDs.
Yeah. So then I would maybe like go to Netgear or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if I click on Netgear. Okay, this is really weird, but maybe I don't want. I keep scrolling down when
I really need an ADSL modem, a new one. I'm going to get an ADSL modem.
AC gigabyte.
Well, I was thinking about running my ADSL modem through my Powerline network adapter.
Okay, let's find that.
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay. But I always like the stuff on the third page. I don't know why. I just do. This is a DSL, not ADSL.
The Netgear.
Okay.
With a built-in ADSL modem. Perfect.
All right, let's do that one. So I'm going to click this one.
Yep.
And it goes to the page. But if I come back, then the click was
this gets submitted, yeah.
And now if I come back and if I just do the search again, there it is.
There it is. Oh, interesting. Am I right that it's boosted things below it as well, or were those already there?
Maybe that was already there. Okay. Those were already there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep,
so just boosted to the top.
Interesting. Yeah, so it's got we're using a signal boost of 100, but that could be defined as whatever, right?
Right.
I guess it could. So, the signal is coming from the page. So when we navigated to it, we saw a very small icon, which was the product page for it.
Right.
So on that, then I can take a website that somebody that's implementing this would take the visit to that page, correlate it to the referrer, I assume, pass that back into Fusion through an API call, and boost that page. So, for example, if they ended up staying on the page for a while, I could boost it.
Right. That could be an event that maybe you want to boost on that. Or if you drag something to a cart or some
I added it to my cart, you could boost it. Yeah.
I just want to look at this for a second. So in addition, this is how you define like an aggregation job. So when I said an aggregation is actually running in the background every 2 minutes, this is where that's done, and it's essentially a Spark job, and you define the collection that the signal is in, which is usually an underscore signals, and you define the grouping field. So we're grouping on query, the doc ID, and any filters that we apply to it. The types of signals that we're going to collect, and we're collecting clicks.
What are the different types of signals?
Whatever you want. That.
Oh, so I can I can call them anything I want.
You can call it a chord signal.
Okay.
And then the query that you want to query against that this collection, star.star is usually sufficient. There's other sort criteria, time range criteria, output pipeline. This output pipeline is essentially no, I don't want to say unless I'm sure, but it should just be as Solar index state. So it essentially takes the JSON and throws it to Solar and indexes it. No process.
The JSON from the signal.
The JSON from the signal. Yep.
Yeah. The signal collection itself is is a bunch of JSON. Okay.
So it pipes it through that pipeline.
So I have a question. So like a collection can be a web crawl, or a document that I upload, or a directory.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's actually the collection being created is a bunch of JSON. Where's that stored? Is that stored in a database or on the file system?
It's stored in the Solar index.
So it's an index, but it's also a special type of index, which is a collection.
They're all So with Solar, when you store documents in Solar, you store them in a collection.
And the collection has a source, and in this case, the source came from the API.
Right. A collection can technically have various sources. Like we can have a collection for sort of an enterprise use case. A collection can contain documents from like your enterprise's Google Drive, their box, your database, your Jive, and sort of having that as a unified collection. What we're doing here is we have our main doctor's reference collection, which if we go to, we can see that what does it contain? Go to the query workbench, do some stuff, and so a doctor document contains an address, a city. This is probably used for a facet because it's an _S, claim number, where the claim was, which hospital, the coordinates, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's the doctor metadata.
Yep.
What the signals, so what ends up happening with, and good that we're here. So in this pipeline that we query against, so essentially what is behind this when it shoots a query off from here, this isn't the doctor's one, but I'm going to close some windows. We don't care about that anymore. So essentially, it pipes it through a query pipeline, and I think we might have talked about this. So this defines like which fields are going to search across and which fields are going to return. Another stage does some phrase match boosting. So these are the parameters here. Some other relevancy another relevancy stage, a date relevancy stage, so it boosts on product freshness probably. User preferences. So this is another boosting on that sort of that boosting on those user preferences, like probably like categories and stuff that a user probably signed in. I didn't sign it. I think I just did it in general. Some facets and suggested links, and then the queries. This doesn't look like. I feel like I'm missing something. So this is the boost with signals. There you go.
Oh, you got a V2.
This looks like the one.
Yeah.
So here is where we're looking in the aggregate. So we have our signals our doctors _ signals. We aggregate it, and then that aggregation is put into this collection, the doctor signals aggregation. And that's really what we start feeding off of, feeding off of. And I'll show us that in a second. So there's a couple of stages that you do with the signals processing. Look in the doctors, do a subquery against the doctor signals aggregation query collection. Here are some query parameters that we want to get back: the field list, sort, query field, etc., etc. Once we get that result back, we want to roll it up. And
with the other data.
With the other data,
right?
And it's attached to a context, so the subquery results. And in this relevancy with signals, then we start actually taking that and creating the boosting.
Interesting.
And then file blah 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 blah, suggested links, shoot it to Fusion, voila, Lydia comes to the top.
So I have a question for you.
Okay.
I'm going to challenge you.
Okay.
So
was it the blah blah blahs?
It was the blah blah blahs. So I was thinking while you were going through this, it was like, well, I'm just like just making up this thing, but I want to maybe get rid of the collects after a week.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So I saw this relevancy with date. So is that something that we could use to because we have a collection of signals? Could we say this is not as relevant with So like just pop things to the top if they've just been clicked on in the last week, but then if they haven't been clicked on the last week, then drop them. So if I had something on sale, for example, if I was running a sale special, you want to show those stuff that people are looking at.
That is a good. Okay, that's a good one. I think you probably have to add to your grouping field like a date parameter. So
I would have to do that. I would have to do that when I was creating the signal.
Right.
I would have to send in a date.
Right. You would not only want to group on the query itself, but you would want to group on the date, the doc ID, and some other factors.
So I'd give it a date that it would expire, and then I would go in there and I would say relevancy with date, and I would work on that.
And you could say something in your query parameter. Essentially, you could say in your query anything that is. Let's say you don't want things that are. You don't want things popping up that are over. That's over.
Yeah, that are stale.
That are like older than a month or 2 months or whatever. Then you could put that as a query parameter to just sort of filter out or to tap that down.
The collection itself, I can also manage that with I could manage that with API calls, right? So I could say you could give me all the signals that I put in at a certain time.
Yeah.
Delete
that could be part of your aggregation itself. Let's see.
Interesting.
If we go back to that aggregation jobs.
Search within search.
Search within search. There it is. So okay. So here's your time. So here's another criteria. So not you can sort you have a sort criteria, and you have a time range criteria. So you could actually set up where like some I'm just making up a field time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Is like some range of some date like I think it's like now minus.
That's right. Yeah.
To now.
Yep.
To now.
So, oh my gosh, I remember that.
So it's something like
it's all coming back. Right.
And then some other things that you're supposed to do when it comes to this, like to give it more precision, to give it a little bit more precision, like if you do like day or hour, like divided by that, then it gives a little bit more precision. But that's essentially how you might go about saying, okay, process signals within this. I'm like covering my face. Process signals within a certain time range, a 30-day time range, and then that would give you what you want.
You're thinking about the artificial intelligence with working for the FBI. You seen that? Patrick Stewart is like, you know, John Luke Picard.
Yeah.
He's like,
of course I do.
That's totally a meme, man.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, I can see. So, I mean, you could. Wow. I mean, that's really powerful because at that point, I'm letting my customers. I mean, obviously, that's sort of the nature of signals in general,
right,
is to be able to get the feedback in. But there's so much here that I can do with the not only like the indexing pipeline, but when I'm doing searches, like just filtering on that stuff based on what other people are doing. That's sort of the whole point is that when you provide search for someone, the objective is to get them the things that they're interested in finding quickly and efficiently. I don't want a bunch. People don't. I mean, you don't want to be presented with a million results. You want to be presented with a handful of results. Usually, people hit that first page, or they want to see images coming back, things like that.
So when it comes to things like retail, especially, or even with the doctor's one, I mean, it could be in any use case. When you want, if you have a lot of activity around a certain thing, and then people start doing stuff with it, then of course you want to do something like that's valuable information. I mean, somebody likes that thing, and if a lot of people like that thing, then why not boost it up into like has some relevancy to it? Right. But then again, like if people are searching for Santa Claus in June, then and you only get a couple of clicks, then well, what does that mean? But if they're searching for Santa Claus in December, then is that a significant event, or is that not a significant event? If enough people are doing it, or maybe I should have used something better, because actually this November, Battlefront 2 on PS4 is coming out, so I have to get that for some special younglings in my life. So let's say people go to Best Buy and they start searching for Battlefront, and it's December. Well, that means people are really interested in buying it. They probably want to know if it's in stock. So if boosting that, giving those sort of boost to that information might be helpful, especially for a retailer. Or if there's a certain doctor in an area that specializes in, let's not to be, again, morbid, but thinking about Flint, Michigan, if there's a doctor that specializes in lead poisoning, then maybe someone would, people are searching and going to that doctor, then they want to find it, then okay, then, so it's things like that can help improve the relevancy. But with all signals, there's noise. Yeah. So it's just trying to help, like, that's what your data analysts and other professionals like that should really sort of analyze that data that is coming in before, like, just throwing it out there.
Well, it could be like what we talked about earlier,
Right.
which is like if you start with a bad data set, you're going to
Right. Well, this is where here we go. So
yeah.
so the conversation is actually coming in full circle. So if anyone from the Pentagon is like watching this,
subscribe and like.
Subscribe and like. That's the first thing you should do.
Yeah.
Then you should call someone at Lucidworks, and so we can come out and help you.
Yeah. Create the AI.
Yeah,
the rest of everyone.
No. I was gonna make a joke, but I think I'll leave the joke first. But then analyzing the data set that you're using as a signal, like what is that signal that you're using? Like what is the noise in there, and how can you mitigate that noise as much as possible?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking earlier. So I did for a time. I did a short stint in the Amazon merchant space.
Grapefruit juice.
I'm sorry?
Grapefruit juice.
Oh yeah, that's grapefruit juice. Yeah, delicious. Water. You know, we had a lot of challenges with you know, product, and especially at certain times of the year. Obviously, you know, like Amazon Prime Days, Black Friday, you know, leading up to Christmas, you get a lot of online traffic anymore. That's just what happens, right? I heard, I forget, it was a company, search engine product company in Asia, you know, doing like billions of dollars in a day.
Okay.
So really we're talking about the scale of things anymore, and systems and the internet are really enabling large-scale purchases. So if somebody was using this for selling products, they could use the boosting capability, at least the boosting capability. The signal could come from something like, we had a price drop on a product.
Right.
So let's boost all of these and get all of those products out, right?
Right. Exactly. You could do things like that. I mean, you don't have to. I mean, we don't have to use signals to boost things. We could boost exactly like you said. If a product is
sort of like a different type of signal.
Yeah,
right?
we can boost on. We could just totally fudge the whole thing and say, this is my store, and these are like, if you're searching for this, then I want this specific document boosted, and that's essentially what the signal does.
Right.
It says this is the document, and I want to boost it on that quicker.
Right.
So we can artificially, or we can sort of organically have that happen.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
That's powerful. That's powerful, especially if you're using this for your you know, like a cart, right? If you're using this to.
I mean, that's a pretty
retail
a
solution.
cart
right?
is that I would say that's a pretty significant signal.
Mm-hmm.
If someone's buying your product and you have multiples and multiples of people buying the product, then when I search on widget A, then widget Z should not be.
Right.
It should be widget A. That's coming, at least bubbling up towards the top. Right. And I think depending on how much emphasis you give on the signal boost, maybe as someone clicks, it doesn't initially start to come up, but once you reach a threshold, it starts to
come up more.
Come up more.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I don't want to.
I've been searching for inverters.
Okay.
You know what an inverter is? You know, like a power inverter?
Yeah.
So usually people's idea of a power inverter is they plug this thing into the cigarette lighter in their car and you get electrical power.
Right.
AC power, 120 volts.
Right.
So I'm doing a small solar install, and I've been looking for an inverter of a certain price range, and it's a challenge to find it on the internet, because there's certain classes of inverters that are very cheap and you know, that you probably don't want to buy. So my behavior has been, I've gone into all of these stores online and I do a search for the review on the store I'm looking at. But then on each store, they have search on each site, and then I've been putting these inverters in carts.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I mean, that is definitely, I can tell like my behavior. Like if there were signals collected on my behavior looking for this particular inverter, there's a lot of information there.
Like if you put something in a cart and you leave it there, that might be something. I mean, if you put it in the cart, then
That means I want it.
Definitely means you want it.
That's right. Yeah.
It could be that you want to compare it, but it still means you want it, or things like that when it's especially like that piece of that product.
Well, this inverter that I did light on an inverter, and the inverter that I found is sold out, and the merchant, the manufacturer, the run is delayed until December.
Oh.
But then they're getting, the guy said, when I actually called them on the phone to get more data about it, and they said, well, a lot of people, they just sold out of them.
Right.
So this particular item became very popular, which they could have told by signals,
Right.
in aggregate at least across all these websites. So that's interesting. I like this ability to sort of interact with the search results.
Right.
Back in the day, it was just a static thing.
Yeah.
You crawled, and then that was what you got. But,
yeah.
Yeah, very powerful.
I did the same sort of searches recently for Halloween. I was trying to find a Cobra Commander mask, like the hood, not the helmet.
Yeah.
And I found a couple, and I put it in my cart. And then all of a sudden, I started getting like recommendations for Cobra Commander toys, this, that, and the other. Yeah. So it's interesting how I'm like, you're doing some sort of like signal processing
on Amazon.
Based on that. So I mean, the more me being sort of in the space, like I see that, like I kind of see what's going on behind the scenes, and actually for me, it helps me to sort of give these ideas back to people. They want the Amazon and the Google experience. Okay, so how do you do that? Well, I know how to do that. It's I can do it in sort of a fundamental way, and then we can start. And once we do that, then we can start building on it. Like making it a little bit more complicated, maybe adding rules engines to it to help with some of that as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that was a great demo. Alrighty, well, do we have anything else to talk about? Or is I think let's see what time. We're at time, so that time flew by. That was a great show.
Yeah, it was.
At least I felt good about it.
Yeah, so. I think that I felt good about that one. Let's make sure we keep that one.
Yeah, exactly. I hope.
The camera's
that's for sure going up. Yeah. It's probably going to be like no sound or something like that. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next week. And in the meantime, if you have any questions or anything, be sure and give us a shout. We'd love to hear from you, and be sure and give us a thumbs up and like the video and subscribe.
And follow.
And if you're the government and you want to talk about search and machine learning, be sure and give us a call because we're going to give you an earful. All right. Goodbye. See you later.